Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, which many of them I know around here, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm very honored, and I want to thank the Xing Organic Foundation and also the Bureau for Forestry for this invitation and the honor for me to give this keynote address here. Hard to follow Professor Lee, but I will go in some details in some areas, not everything. We'll make sure we don't duplicate too much in my presentation, which again told transforming agriculture. And if you permit, I'll walk around a little bit because I need to move. Because I'm also a farmer, so I like to walk around. So since here I cannot be on my farm. And the one thing actually I'm going to do when I go back, I'm going to check my grapes who have leafhoppers, see if the wine is sweeter when I have a lot of leafhoppers than if I have fewer leafhoppers. Maybe I can also benefit from your research here on tea for my wine, since I'm also a wine producer. So what I'm going to talk about, so I will discuss a bit about sustainable agriculture and food systems, because I think we need to embed agriculture and the production in the whole food system. And if we don't do that, I don't think we're going to make the transformation we need. And I think that's something which came out now in the past few years. So a little bit about some of the problems and challenges. So I'll go fast over what has been said already, a bit slower where something new may come. And then sort of, can we overcome these challenges? So we heard about challenges, we heard about there is research done, we have a lot of results, but actually it's not really happening. I mean, it's happening, but not at the rate we want it to happen. We don't have time. We are in a period right now, you can see worldwide, we have extreme weather situation. Just next door from my farm, 2 miles away, everything is burned down. 1,000 houses, huge amount of forest, 1,000 hectares of forest have burned down. And why is it so hot and so dry? While in other places, people are drowning. So clearly, I think there's something there. And so it is an urgency in doing something, and not just anything. I'll show a little bit more about what we can do right now and where we need to actually apply the lever. This is important. You know, where are the leverage points to make things move? And so we have a policy framework. So in the background, the SDGs, I think we have, this is totally unique. We have now a framework which is universally agreed. It may not be as good as we want. We could have probably done a whole lot more, but you know, we need to start somewhere. And we have now what we need to get started, so why don't we do it? And then in the end, so what can you do? Because in the end, it is individuals who will make the change. It's not somebody else. It's yourself, being a citizen, using your citizens' rights to demonstrate, to vote. You can do all this. So if we all don't do it and wait somebody else to do it, we're going to be waiting until we are all dead. And I think so we don't have that time, okay? So to me, it looks like we need to really to move on. And I had the honor to be the co-chair of this famous report, IAASTD, Agriculture at a Crossroad, and I know everybody has read it. You all know about it. And actually next year is the 10th anniversary of its publication. The report, Agriculture at the Crossroads, was published in January 2009. So hopefully we'll see what we can do at the 10th anniversary to dig it up. Now, many other reports have been published since. So, you know, we can publish more reports. What are we doing with it? And who actually is supposed to read them and put them into practice? At least in the IASTD, we published a summary for decision makers. We thought that if we work hard and put these 2,000 pages into 10 pages, which we did, that the decision makers will actually read them and do something. Well, big mistake. The only people who read this report very well were the NGOs. People like you in this room and in rooms around the world where we actually are from the civil society groups. These are the people who actually have been pushing and making the transformation happen, which we have so far. Not the government and not the FAO. FAO has published a lot of reports. They are good at reporting. Inside this organization, unfortunately, only very few people are committed. Very few. This has to change. Because if they don't change, it's very hard to change. And they have access to every government and actually can tell them, you know, that's what needs to be done. So again, I think we need to really understand also the politics around what's going on or if not going on. And so if we look at, so what we asked at that time was not just a little bit changing things. We asked for a paradigm change and a fundamental transformation of agriculture toward agroecology. That word is in this report. You can find it all over the place. The first time really it was brought out into the wide open. And I think that was important. And because we wanted to address this issue of multifunctionality, which is very important, because we need to pull things together. We need to think in system and long term. This whole holistic approach, and we have some good examples that if you do a holistic approach, where do we go? We actually add many, many elements, very important. And I think that we have to reconstruct agriculture. The way it's done, it doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. And not only agriculture, but as I said, we need to transform the whole food system. And so, you know, if you start to look at what's wrong with that food system, well, many things. Malnutrition, we have a lot of hunger in the world. Not only hunger, we have malnutrition. We have undernutrition, we have overnutrition. And so that is actually part of also this food system, and agriculture itself is actually quite a big problem, or a big part of that problem. Not only, but it's very much in there. And so if we don't really address these issues of hunger, macronutrient deficiencies, which leads on the one hand obesity and then also diabetes, this is the narrowing down of our diet. If you go into landscapes in many places, what do you see out there? Maize field as far as you can see on one side, and the other is probably soybeans, and then you go in another part of the world, and as far as you can see, there's palm oil plantations. That can't work. We just heard it. It cannot work. So I think this is what we need to change. And so biodiversity loss, so I don't have to go too much in it, because that's a big, big issue. And the agriculture we are having now is actually part of the problem. It's actually a big part of the climate change problem, when it could be actually the biggest part also of the solution. As we know, we heard it many times since the Paris COP21, the 4 pour 1000 initiative which was launched there. We're still waiting to see something really happening somewhere, but the ideas are there. The political commitment is not there. This is what's missing. And there won't be political commitment until you and myself and everybody else out there start to put pressure on the people in charge. And this is what you mentioned, is the governance. Good governance is actually listening to the people, not to everybody, not only to one side like the private sector. And then again, I think it's not only environmental issues, we have the social issues, poverty, disempowerment, marginalization of women, the youth. So we have all these problems, and all these need to address together. Not one over here, something over here, something over there, because that's exactly what's being done. We have done a lot of work. The integration to actually people can see, you know, the change happening when it needs to happen. So just a few images, okay, we have malnutrition. I want to insist here on this one just briefly, because we need to understand that actually we produce enough food for the 10 billion people already. So when FAO says we need more food, I tell them that's not true. We need to waste less. We need to produce different type of foods. We need to produce better food, better nutrition. We don't need more calories. We have more than enough, even for 10 billion. We don't have enough nutrients in that food. That's why we have to stop with this maize craze on a global scale, the soybean craze, and the palm oil craze. This is what's destroying us, the planet, the people, the economies. So when because, you know, we can say, all right, this is 4,300 calories, I think about, yeah, produced per day per person. We need only half of that to be healthy. So nobody should tell me that we need more. We need different, in different places, produced by different people. This is what we need to do. So this is where I think we can make a huge change. And we need to stop with these food losses, food waste, and that's linked to a point I'll make later, cheap food. If what you put in the garbage can would cost a lot of money, you wouldn't do that, right? But now you always go out there and think, oh, cheap food, all right, I can buy a big package, put it in the fridge, and after 5 days, half of it is green. And you don't even compost it. It goes into the pile somewhere, produce methane, and add to the climate change. So this is what type of problems we have. And so this agriculture here, I can tell you, that cloud is coming fast for many, many. And we can't allow that to happen. We need to change, we need to go back to a totally different agriculture, landscapes, actually like I see around here, much more human size. But again, even when you do it small, you can do it wrong too. So it's, I think we have to really think about it. So we have disconnects out there in this agri-food system between agriculture and the environment, because people want to produce or get more cheap food, so we make larger fields, more mechanizations, not thinking about the negative impact. We just look at the short-term benefit. Yes, we can produce cheap maize, rice, everything in very large scale. What are the costs? So there's a disconnect in the understanding between the agriculture production and the environment, between producers and consumers. Consumers wouldn't always pick the cheapest food in the market if they understood what the consequences are, not for themselves only, for their children in particular. Because now we're taking generation time. Because the sins of our fathers and grandfathers are what created the problem we have now. All right? We are trying to, my generation, yeah, I'm part of that problem, people who have done a lot of bad things, or at least my generation, maybe not personally. I hope to fix this thing for a long time, but when you have only few people against a lot of people, it's difficult. And then the policies and expectation. People make policies and they expect something good coming out, and they have just no idea, because they don't play out the scenarios, which we could actually play out very well if we wanted to. So again, these disconnects we need to remove, we need to change, cannot go on. And Johan Rockström, way back in 2011, already published this, planetary boundaries. We have already gone way beyond. We heard it, biodiversity, 75% is lost, it's gone. Biotech cannot rebuild that. Some people think, oh, Hans, don't worry with your discussion with your biodiversity, we're just gonna make it. And now don't worry, because we have CRISPR-Cas, so we do even more and faster. And don't worry, everything is fine, everything is perfect. It's not. Because when we lose certain things, they're lost, they're burned, they're gone. You can look at the whole issue of nitrogen fertilizer and how much damage that has done already. Some things we can't even recover anymore. So I think, when we see this, that we go so far out in the red on many issues, we should remain in here, then you can see the size of the problem we're trying to address. So what happened? Now, we have heard quite a bit about ecosystem services. They are here. There are people in this system. We are recycling nutrients. We have water cycling in the ground. We have pest management, pollination. That's just these are these ecosystem services, in brief. So what happened? And actually, the agriculture, when we do it like this, we have this green agriculture, diverse, where a lot of CO2 is taken to the ground, and we have a happy consumer up there. What happens to him or her? And so what did we do? What did the world do? Because with ecosystem services, you don't make money. Nobody is selling them to you, right? So actually, nobody is cashing money for them, except the farmers who actually would save money if they would actually do it. No, people out there decided, oh, we can replace the pest management from the nature with chemicals. All right, then I can make money. I produce chemicals, I can sell them. All right. We produce GMOs because then everything is easy, right? Don't worry. We can produce plenty of food, we just use GMOs. Water cycling and nutrient cycling, don't worry, we do irrigation, and we put all the fertilizer into irrigation, everything is easy. That's what happened. So a few people got very rich, and the majority got poor and sick. And the guy over here has turned over also. And at the same time, we developed an agriculture which contributes half of the food system, half of the greenhouse gases. I mean, that cannot go on, right? Mostly when we have the research result, we get plenty. It's not that we have to go do more research. Sure, we need more research. Because today, less than 1% of the total ag research on a global scale goes into anything like agroecology. And then I've been even very generous in what I can consider in there. Less than 1%. Now you tell me if with 99% of the total ag research we can make the transition. Not possible. Because it's research and extension, it goes together. So again, we need to press our policymakers, and I'm very sorry that Mr. Shen, or whatever his name is, the minister, is not here. I would tell him, right, you need to change where you put your money. Yeah, I said that before. When people are there on the front row, I don't mind. I have nothing to lose. I could retire tomorrow if I want to, but I'm still around because of this. And so what we need to do, we are thinking linear, okay? We need to think circular. It's nothing new. Nothing new. Are we doing it? No. Our researchers, our scientists thinking a system? No, they all have little boxes because they need to get a little grant from somewhere, and the people who give grants for something they find, not for something a bit complex. So these are the issues we're dealing with. Now we say we need to integrate. So the 3 dimensions, they're not pillars, they're dimensions of system development are number 1, the environment. Okay, when you start to look at. And then you add on the society, the social part. And only at the end that you add the economy and not the other way around. We do exactly the other way around when even we go beyond economy. And then all around here, obviously, we have governance. And I will say now good governance. So looking at agroecology, don't have to go into many details. I think you guys all know what I'm talking about here. But I think that what are the expectations now from agroecology? First of all, I think I need to point to the fact that agroecology is evolving. It's an evolving concept. The latest definitions in Stephen Glissman's book really make the point that it is also the food system. So it's really holistic this time around. So if you take the latest version of his book, you really get the gist of what actually we're talking about when we talk agroecology. And under there we can put in organic agriculture, biodynamic, permaculture, regenerative agriculture, everything actually fits in there. Everything we know should be fitting there, right? The only one thing that doesn't fit in there is green evolution type agriculture, for example. And FAO, even FAO, thanks to a few rebels inside, has come up with the 10 principles for agroecology. And so the FAO also has finally organized a symposium and then another symposium, a global scale, a few symposia around the world. But it's slow. It's very slow. And I think that most governments actually are not even present there at this discussion. And are not really doing what needs to be done. And I will tell you why things are actually not happening. We can look at organic agriculture 3.0. Well, we are right on there, right in the right direction. So we can see all these concepts are evolving into the right direction, in the right direction of being more holistic, of being inclusive of the 3 dimensions of sustainable development. So that's all good. So if you look at some of the latest publication, all right, if you look at a few details, high diversity you have in the field, then also you already have a higher diversity in your plate. And higher diversity also means less impact, less negative impact. And I'm going a bit fast to make sure that I have enough time maybe for a few questions at the end. The presentation will be available actually on the website of the conference. But important, and that's where you, myself, can do something. We have to change our eating habit. The trend on a global scale of what we consume and our diets are actually the problem and will remain the problem as long as we are here. This is how much you eat. Meat, dairy, more meat here, even chicken or fish. And then look at the green part down here, being very small. Maybe not here in Taiwan or in some places where, as far as I can see, I was out yesterday for dinner. I only had green stuff. Okay, that was good. I'm still here, so you don't die when you eat green, right? But even Barilla, this is a pasta company in Italy who is really doing very good research on diet changes, has come back now with this pyramid here. So this is where we need to go. Less here and more down here. And I think that's the key. That's the key. Because farmers will not produce something you don't eat or buy. So don't accuse the farmer. Look at yourself. What are you buying? And how much are you buying? So I think that's where they don't. And so, but again, do we have enough diversity left out there? We lost a lot already. And you can see over the last 100 years what we used to have in terms of variety of different vegetables and what's left today. Although we are still plenty tomatoes out there, but you know, we're losing them. And much faster now that, you know, with the GM technology of all sorts, I just read that they're making new CRISPR-Cas tomatoes, which are supposed to be sweeter, for example. Yeah? Do we want sweet tomatoes? I'm not sure. Well, maybe some people think so. And we know that if we go from conventional agriculture to regenerative and ecological agriculture, you know, we do much better in most indicators for sustainability, for health, environmental health, for example. So again, this is nothing new. I mean, 2016, yeah, all right, but the results behind this are already there for years. Are we actually looking at them and putting them to work? Now, I also happen to be a member of the IPES-food panel of experts, food systems, and we published a paper 2 years ago, IPES Food 2016, from uniformity to diversity. And I'm sure some people have read it and seen it. If not, go get it. Because we make the point here 10 years after, or that was 8 years after the publication of the STD report, you know, that we need to transform, that we need to go over here to agroecological farming practices, being it if you are in the industrial, but also in the subsistence. Because subsistence farming is not the future. It is not necessarily actually good. You know, I think we have a lot of good science to back up organic agriculture, for example, in agroecology, to make it better. We need to use the science. If we go out there and say, no, what our grandfather was to do is good, then we could be attacked. Say, yeah, but you cannot produce enough. People go hungry. Say, no, we have good science in organic agriculture and agroecology. A lot of very good science. But again, we know we have to cite it and make sure that people understand it's there to back up what we're saying. So if we were to change from this type of diet, which gets this black agriculture, and go there, then we go back. And when we do that, we also become much more environmentally friendly and also more climate resilient. Now, the scaremongers out there, and there were papers come out just recently, the last few weeks, a number of papers come out and they said that organic cannot feed the world. Okay, number one, nobody's feeding anybody, okay? Because we feed animals and people nourish themselves, community nourish themselves, so we need to change the vocabulary, number one. And in America, when I go, I tell us to people where I am, I said, you don't have any responsibility to feed anybody. Because, you know, Americans say, we feed the world. European, no, we need to help Africa with food. All totally wrong. It's because of this behavior, of this overproduction on one side of the world, cheap, mechanized, huge amount of negative externalities, that we actually killed the farming in Africa, in Latin America, also in Asia. The Americans can grow rice at probably less than half the price than you do here. But that's not full accounting, right, as we know. So just to say, so now the people come out and say, yeah, but you with your organic stuff, you're never going to feed the world. Feed, okay? Actually, we can nourish everybody. Because the conventional, if you look at conventional to be 100, let's say in terms of production, organic in developing countries, basically in all emerging societies, we go to 180. Because we don't start at this corrupted agriculture. this industrial. And so if you look at in industrial, all right, we may lose a little bit, maybe at the very beginning. It has been shown that in most places, after a few years, you do catch up. And in particular, if you change your measure of success. The measure of success is not how many tons per hectare we produce, but how much nutrients. Like Vandana Shiva says, no, how much health per acre, not how much kilograms. Doesn't mean anything. Starch, then you have obesity, diabetes, all right? So again, so we know much better. And actually, when you look at low external input versus high external input, I'll just look at these two, the red and the green one here. So we modeled this for Mozambique. Because the industry and Rockefeller and World Bank have been putting huge amount of money in large-scale agriculture, industrial agriculture. And they said, we're going to produce a lot more food. Actually, in the short term, they may. And soon, your low-level input, external input agriculture is much better. You'll be resilient. We can show that. We can do models. So if you use the principles of agroecology, organic agriculture, in your models, you can show that in the short term, you're as good, and in the longer term, you're better. And that's only yield here. We don't even look at nutrient contents and all what's around it, what's coming around it. So again, I think it's important. And we know so many things, SRI, you know that also, although yesterday I didn't see any on my trip down south. But when you do SRI, you beat the best IRI varieties. They don't like it down there in the Philippines when you tell them. But that's the fact. It's there. Cambodia is using plenty of it, in Vietnam, in other places. So just to say, so we have a lot of good technologies where we can actually do what we need to do. Oops, that's the wrong one. And I have to show this one because that's what the cassava mealybug. So this wasp here, Epididyrocarsis lopezi, which is about 2 millimeters big, saved 20 million lives. And we demonstrated that with biological control, you can control pests, if you do it right. But you have to focus, you have to put your energy in one thing, and so we did not only this one, we did many, many more. It works, so what are we waiting for? Those institutes of the CGIAR where I did this, IITA in Nigeria, they have today basically zero biocontrol. It's all biotech. They are releasing GMO cassava now. Just as an example, GMO cowpeas. These are the people which actually I helped develop a whole biocontrol center for Africa, which has since gone bust, clear, because you have to have fighters there or not, if not, nothing happens. But just to say that even good examples are no match against some of the powers I'll talk about. Pollination, important, right? We know that. So are we paying attention? Yeah, a little bit. I just read this morning, the latest news, probably you've seen also, you know, they're replacing the neonicotinoids with some new chemicals which are actually just as bad. Because we don't need those chemicals to begin with. It's not we replace one with another and another, because it's always going to be the same thing again. No. We have to arrange the system so we don't have the problem. Every pesticide you use, every fertilizer you're going to use is actually a treatment for the symptom of your bad agronomy. Voilà. So, we want to treat the cause. Why do we have a pest problem in our field, for example? And how can we change the way we do things to avoid those problems? We need to get more trees in our environment. Again, many places have a lot of trees. Others have gotten rid of all of them. So again, I think there are many ways we can do things better. We need to do, and we can do larger scale too. It's not only, you know, sustainable agriculture doesn't have to be only the tiny fields. And we have to be careful with this also, but if we just say, oh, that's only small scale farming, we'll go nowhere. And I think many farmers in the US have shown that they can actually get rid of fertilizer and their herbicides and GMOs if they do cover crops. And we have a good friend here, Andre Loy here, he's done it himself. He's also a farmer. He knows that with cover crops you can actually do things. You don't need herbicides. Right? But so that's there. And again, you know, we also can use mechanization. If we don't mechanize, small, medium, and large not extra large, young people will not stay in agriculture. You won't have people in 20 years going out with a hoe working in the field anymore. And we can mechanize, we can make life easier for people. Important. And make sure that we have a system which is diverse. People, animals, and plants. That doesn't say something we cannot use also some levels of appropriate mechanization. I just saw a picture a few days ago from a program in Africa where the African Development Bank wants to spend, listen well, $24 billion in the next 10 years on the African continent, sub-Saharan Africa, for transforming agriculture. So the example they were showing, they already had a few there, mega tractors. Mega, okay? I mean, not the small tractor, the big thing. I mean, you know, that's the problem. We have a problem at the policy level, at the people who have the money, they still have not understood, you know, that we can do things different. And so we have good examples of understanding. Good science is actually at the base of this example here of the push-pull. And there's a little movie here which I don't want to play, but you can see it when on the website later. But here we have corn or maize, and here you have a cover crop, desmodium, and here you have sort of a trap crop around, which is a grass, could be well, not any grass, but Napier grass is a good one, and they're trying with some other grasses now, who are very attractive. So what do they do? So these grasses attract the pest. Either from when they come from outside the field or within the field, they'll go there, lay their eggs, and since the plant is not a good host, it attracts them. It's no good host, they all die there. But the maize plants, we now figured out, the local variety, okay, the local, not the new hybrids, can react to the pest insect. When they get a pest insect on it, they'll give pheromones out, or pheromones as they're called, exactly, and will attract the beneficial insects. And we measure this now. 10 years ago we couldn't. Now we can measure. A little thing like this, we can measure stuff out there in the field, right? Amazing. Local varieties, farmer-selected varieties have the capacity to fend off insect attack, the same also with diseases, actually. And so once you have a system like this, it works for itself. And in addition, which is even nicer, or very good too, so we have more carbon in the ground because it's a cover crop here, which keeps the soil permanently covered. And it will also fight off the weeds because there's no space for weeds, in particular striga weeds. And then even better, we also get nitrogen because the legume, which is the cover crop, actually fertilizes the crop. So you have corn, which is like more than 2 meters tall, with 0 and fertilizer. Again, you know, this is not new. This has been going on now for 20 years. We have been trying this. Is it being promoted by the large, even NGOs, like Gates? No, it's fought. They're trying to fight it wherever they can. And the governments, no, they're fighting it because they want the money for importing more seeds, fertilizer, and pesticides. So this is where we are. So we have good methods. And here, if you start to integrate all this, what happens? We create synergies, okay? The income of these farmers gets bigger. It's more than the sum of the elements because you integrate. The synergies in that system are enormous. I mean, this is not small beans here we're talking about, right? It's possible. That's where we need to go. Integration of the different factors. And you see here we have push-pull, that's what I just showed you, but there's beekeeping in there, malaria control, very important, tsetse fly control, because people need animal attraction. So once you solve all these little problems, you actually really make the train move, right? Things are moving then in the right direction. So it's possible, we can do it. And also what's important, the soil, we heard it, but we don't pay enough attention to soil biology. Millions of publications out there on soil physics and fertilizer use. Has anyone looked into the life that's going on the ground? It's much more than above. How many times more? Well, I don't even know. But 1,000 probably or even more. So if you don't pay attention to what's going on under our feet, we cannot do anything. Because healthy soil, healthy plant, healthy people, healthy planet, right? but it starts with the soil. So we have to really rethink a lot of what we do in terms of agriculture. And many papers came out, you've seen in the background, can dirt save the earth? I don't like the term dirt, it's just like feeding soil. But yes, it can. And I think that if we don't pay attention to soil, we'll all fry, because the soil is the solution to the climate change. And we know that this type of agriculture here, and I know my friend Andre Loy has got the numbers, could actually absorb not only all the emissions done, but even 1.5 times. So we can reduce the amount of CO2 which is out there, because even if we stop producing CO2 today, down to 0, we're still going to go past the 2 degrees Celsius we should have. So we need to get these things in the negative. And the only way to do is actually to really apply the concepts behind agroecology, and in particular now the regenerative agriculture, which again we want to regenerate. We want to be better year after year. So, all right, we know all this stuff. We have more and more evidence. Although we know, your evidence you have, people say, it's not good, we got better one, right? Monsanto always has the better evidence than you. Until now, but just wait, it's not much longer. So what can we do? The whole issue behind this is what we call the political economy of food system, or we call the lock-ins. And this paper from IPES I mentioned before is a very important component. So here we have concentration of power. It's huge. It's controlling everything under your nose. And so what in agriculture, we found a number of things. Export orientation. There's hardly a country I went to, they don't say, I want to be the biggest exporter of food. Never mind what happens home, we want to export. India, Prime Minister Modi told me in a meeting about a year ago when we went to see him, agroecology, I know it's good. We need to do more of it. That's fine, I know, tell me how. At the same time, then he says, but India has to become the major food exporter. Oh, then we didn't say anything because we didn't want to annoy him right there. But, what about nourishing your people first and well? Nobody needs American food. Nobody needs Indian food out there, right? Or maybe Singapore, but that's a small amount. And so this fixation with export orientation, the expectation of cheap food, all of us, that's killing. When we do that, we're just helping the people who have a lot of power. Feed the world narrative, exactly. Everyone wants to feed the world. We need to go away from these type of things. Compartmentalized thinking. Pigeonhole, small things, small thinking, short-term thinking. We need to get rid of this. Short-term thinking, again, that's sort of connected. How can I make more money today? Tomorrow, who cares, because I won't be around, so maybe somebody else's problem. Yeah, it's not. We all have children, or most of us, and we have also young people here. I think we have a responsibility toward the new generation, so we got to change things. The measure of success, exactly, kilogram per hectare versus health per hectare, for example. Just more yield is not really a measure of success, or more money in the end. And we have a path dependency, green revolution. That thing is not yet dead. Because there's a Green Revolution 2.0, 3.0, and now it's actually called climate smart agriculture. That's now the new impersonation in some ways of Green Revolution. It's a reductionist approach to what we call agroecology. They're picking a few elements and say, okay, don't worry, we don't need the whole thing, we're just going to do 2 or 3 things and we're good. Just like in the past, just like what they did with IPM, Integrated Pest Management, basically gutted the whole concept. And if you go to that report, you'll find more details also on what can we do actually to change all these different things. So again, I'll leave it up to you to read. Can we do it? We have simulated in a model up from 2010 to 2050. Sorry, it's very bad. The thing's so bad, you cannot believe it. On my computer, it's very sharp. So there's something with the setting. But you know, business as usual, the baseline is about 2,000 calories per person. If we apply green agriculture, agroecology, we go to 2,500 calories per day per person by 2050, using less land, less water, as an example. So this is about 2,500. And if we continue business as usual, you know, mean more fertilizer, more pesticides, we actually grow less. And never mind all the negative impact this will have. But on the positive side also, you can see that if we do that, by 2030 or 2050, we improve, you know, we reduce poverty, minus 26%, or nutrition is better, or for example, the footprint is better. As you know, that we're already eating right now, I think we just reached the threshold of our footprint, ecological footprint. I think these few days, we have eaten, consumed, the interest of the world's natural capital. So like your bank account, from now on, you're eating the capital. The interest is already gone. How long can you do that? How long can we continue to do that? And I think this is what we need to change. And we have this framework, the SDGs. So when you go back to Rio 92, Agenda 21, I'm sure some of you remember, you probably even been there. And then we went to the Millennium Development Goals. That was all for developing countries only. But now we have something which is really for everybody out there, the SDGs. Again, it's not perfect, but it embodies a lot of the language we have defined in the IAA SDG report. Many NGOs, 150 we got together before Rio, plus 20. We went to Rio, plus 20. We made a lot of noise there, and we managed to get our small paragraphs into the final document. It took a lot of work for many people, but I can tell you it was NGOs and a few friendly government. Because we all have some connection in our own governments, so we managed to get them to pay attention to something, so that's where we are. Not perfect, but it's the best we can do. And you can see that agriculture is very central. So if you can go to connects to everything else, and you can take actually any one of them, you will see that they will connect to everything. So here, again, integrated and system thinking is where, on what's going to help us. Because we won't get to these targets if we don't create synergies. It means that we make more out of the money we have. And we have to stop thinking that, you know, every one of these things is a ministry and they're going to do their own little work. So, oh, don't bother me, I'm a health minister, I know what's good for the people. No, they need to talk to agriculture. They need to talk to environment, because these are very strong connections. And so we need to link all these things. And that's what we're about to do already. There's a number of people out there working with models and a group of people to make that change. But again, we need to address the trades-off which exist. We need to break the silos which are very strong out there. So we need to use the synergies, and also we need to get together and have a shared view of that future. You can't do this alone. We may have a good science somewhere, a good scientist, but if they don't talk to the people out there, they're not doing anything. So how can we bring the people together to actually discuss? And so we have forums, international level at the CFS, for example, and so using, again, these SDGs. We also need to talk at national level and sub-national level, at the community level, bring people together. Tell them, okay, what are the issues? How can you contribute your piece to achieving SDGs? It's not the government that's going to do it, it's the people. So we need to break this thing down all the way to the people by inventing ways and a way of doing it. And so we at the Millennium Institute actually have figured a way where we have this multi-stakeholder discussion. We do fancy system dynamics models with them. They build it with us, they customize to the country, play the scenarios. Do you like it? You don't like it? What policy is needed to get this happen? And then you go around and you discuss. Then you have everybody on board. So it doesn't come from the government down, or it's not only a few people involved at the community level who do something. Everybody is really part of the system, and basically we reconnect all the different pieces. So again, That's the important is to connect. Conclusion, so what do we have there? All right, we want to promote a sustainable and biodiverse agriculture, right? But also the food system, which goes with it. Because the food system also has to be diverse. We don't want only McDonald's around, right? Or Kentucky Fried Chicken. So again, there's a cultural diversity which has to be taken into account in your agriculture and food system. You can't do without. Actually, we see where this leads already. And again, we need to help also the small farms, family farms, they can be any size, to adapt to this whole issue of climate change. And because they're the first one affected, but they're the first one can do something about it. But that is not happening without support. They need help for that. There's a cost to the transformation. The land issues is always there, always going to be there, I think. It's a very difficult topic to tackle in any situation, but I think if we don't go anywhere. My own country in Switzerland, you know, we are building over the best land, and the farmers have to go up into the mountain. I mean, what a nonsense, right? Put the buildings up into the mountain. In California, where I live, at the moment, same thing. The best land, even by University of California, Davis, the best land is now built over in 2-story buildings, when you could make I don't know, a 100-story tall building if you wanted to. You see, this is, where are the policies here? And why is nobody going down the street and demonstrating? Even those students, nobody says anything. I can't believe it. So again, we need to look at our land. How do we use it? Again, help the women farmer. And I think the key lever, and that's probably my last big point, is true costing. Until you pay the true cost of what you buy. If it's a microphone here, thing here, your food, we won't go anywhere. We cannot continue to externalize the costs to society and the benefits to a few companies. Exactly what's happening right now. The world is getting, the 0.1% getting so much richer, and all the rest is getting poorer. And that's exactly why. So true costing, and that's going to be difficult to implement because you're going to really get to stir up an anthill here, right? But if we don't do that, I don't see how we can make this transformation. And I think that's really what we're going to have. And that's every one of us can do that, can take the lead in making those changes because the decision at the end is when you shop. Shop for whatever you shop. Do you pay the true price? Yes or not? And I have said, you mentioned TEEB. The latest TEEB report is actually trying to get at this. And I think it's coming. But we are at the report stage. Now let's see if we can go to the action stage. Thank you very much for listening. Shishe.